Hi, I'm Gardner Morse, a senior editor at Harvard Business Review. I'm pleased to have Matt Eyring here with me today. Matt's the president of Innosight, a strategy consulting firm based here in Boston, and he's the co-author with Mark Johnson and Hari Nair of an article in HBR's January issue entitled New Business Models in Emerging Markets. Matt, thanks for coming over.
Great to be here, Gardner.
So 20,000 multinationals are operating in developing markets, and you write that the major problem they're having is that they've got their business models wrong. What do you mean by that?
Well, companies who really think they've changed their business models for developing markets haven't. They've tweaked them around the edges. While some have even established local R&D centers, local country leadership, they really haven't fundamentally rethought the business model from the ground up. It's primarily been an exercise in cutting costs and saying, how do we de-feature a product or de-feature an offering for a market that can't afford it or doesn't have access to it, instead of really rethinking the fundamental value proposition from the perspective of the local customer. If they do that, they'd find that there are many more levers that come into the equation than just product cost or even R&D, having to do with the way a product's distributed, the way it's marketed, the way it's financed in some cases, that can all be tailored and really rethought from scratch in the local market.
So a common strategy is selling less for less. You take a can of soft drink and you reduce its size and reduce its cost and you try to sell that. And
That's exactly. You're going to sell less for less, and what they really need to do is sell less for more. They need to be looking at all the levers of the business model, not just cost and not just reducing features, but what features could we add to the product at the same time that we're reducing cost? What different marketing might we use? What different distribution channels might we use? The product might be too expensive, even with costs engineered out, to sell to a local market. It's not just a question of making a product locally or reducing features or tailoring it to the environment. You've got to think about an entire ecosystem, not just in healthcare, but in a lot of other industries, or you're not going to have success. It's not product R&D. It's business model R&D.
Now, any new business model begins with identifying an unmet need, or as you guys put it, a job to be done. Now, in emerging economies, it looks like there are an infinite number of unmet needs. How do you approach that problem, identify the ones that are worth investing in developing solutions to?
That's interesting. I guess there's two answers to that question. One is sort of where you look, and the other is how you might look for these needs. And let me talk about where you might look first of all, because we cover that in the article. In general, and this is not always the case, but I think is a pretty good rule of thumb, in the developing market there are two types of products and services sold, two submarkets, and one of them is at the very low end. There is a proliferation of products and services that are very, very low priced but low quality. A lot of them are domestic companies serving the masses. At the other end, precisely because these multinationals bring their business models into these countries, you can buy a Mercedes, you can get all of the high-end goods. And those appeal to a subsegment of the population because these countries are so big. I mean, there's 1.2 billion people in India. You're going to get
some people who can afford a
You're
Mercedes.
going to get some people who can afford those things and who want those things and where your business model works. You've got to localize it. You've got to tweak the marketing in some cases, but you're going to find a market there. What is missing is sort of the affordable luxury. It's products and services for the emerging middle class. A good example, and we talk about this in the article, is in laundry services. So we provide advisory services, but sometimes like to venture out and actually invest our own money and on ideas that look interesting to us. One of them was a laundry business where we observed at the very low end, you know, for very few rupees, you're able to give your clothes off to Adobe, where they're going to, you know, hit your clothes with rocks against rocks and perhaps wash them in an unhygienic situation. Get them back to you in a few days. There's also very, very high-end dry cleaning services or laundry services that are quite professional, but they're expensive. I mean, these can cost, you know, upwards of 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 rupees per garment. And,
out of reach of a lot of people.
Out of reach of a lot of people, and you're not going to get those back, so it's inconvenient and expensive. In between those options is this missing middle. And this was one of the ideas that we had, which is, could you create a laundry service for folks who really can't afford a washer and dryer or don't have one or where it's not convenient, but as if they had one on the street corner where their clothes they could wash very easily, conveniently, and pick them up again. And do it, by the way, with quality detergents, have them washed in a way that's hygienic and a high quality product, but quickly and cheaply, closer to the price that you'd pay if you went to a low-end domain.
So you created a pretty innovative model, and you brought along
I did. I brought along just
a replica,
just a little bit of a
that
replica scale model. So if you can imagine this blown up to about 7 feet tall and 4 feet wide, you get an example of this rig. It's branded as Shamuk.
Yep.
We call it Village Laundry Service, and essentially the idea is I'll just open up the door. It's a freestanding kiosk, so we could roll these things into, say, near a university, near an apartment building, anywhere where the foot traffic, the footfall going in and out of a place of residence or a place of education might be high. We can easily move them around and test where the demand might be high, and we can take this. Here's a little table that goes outside. You'll then see we've got a washing machine here that's hooked up. There's a tank, a water tank that is inside that's self-contained, so if you have a source of water, it's great. If not, we're able to wash clothes here with this tank. We've got a collection bin that takes your clothes. We're going to weigh your clothes. It's 40 rupees, around 40 rupees a pound. Your information is going to be put in. We're going to tag the clothes. Go ahead and wash them. You dry them up here in the top in a little dryer that we've made. They're going to be folded, and then you're going to get an SMS message, a text message essentially, to tell them to come and pick them up. And in some places, we're testing delivery. Again, the point of it is, this is an experiment we're running. We'll have to see how much it scales. We have sort of 20 plus sites in a couple of cities. But the idea is, can you find demand in the missing middle? Mm-hmm. It's only marginally more expensive than the Dobies beating your clothes on rocks. Yep. But you're getting a lot of extra value. It's not less for less, it's less for more.
And what's been the response to it so far?
Response has been overwhelming. We have about 5,000 customers or so. We have to be careful. I mean, we're like any business people, we're just getting this thing to break even. And not all sites work. What you learn is where you place the rig is very, very important. How you market it in the local community. Whether you have an institution come in, which is say a hospital or others with bulk orders to smooth the demand.
Let's talk about another product that you're developing and a model around it, the ChotoCool refrigerator.
Sure.
You brought one with you today.
And I wanted to say the company that's making the refrigerator, and this I think is the interesting part of the story, is Godrej Company, which is a business that's very diversified in India. It's a large, well-known company there. They're in locks, hair dye, a wide range of products, but they also sell white goods. So this is a company coming into the market in the similar situation that you just explained. We've got regular products, refrigerators for the high end, but we don't have anything else. And let me just give a bit of background on this example for a moment. Whereas you and I would have over one refrigerator per household, 1 in 10 households have refrigerators in India. So I got this model from Professor Christensen's office, Clay Christensen at the Harvard Business School, who was in the first workshop with Godrej. They're a very visionary...
In conceiving the idea.
In conceiving this idea, and we worked with them, advising them for the first year of getting this thing going, and here's the product. The technology, as is in the case with many disruptive innovations, is not rocket science. So you have a semiconductor, a cooling chip, the thermoelectric effect here, a fairly basic technology that's been around for a while but not applied this way, and a fan. And then when you open it, on the bottom here, you'll notice that there's about 45 liters. There's expandable trays, and this may not seem like much, but I think the very important story behind it is the way the company came to the product like this. It's very, very clever. As they did their ethnographic research, very deep customer research, not reports that they bought. They went out and lived with customers. They did video ethnography. They took pictures of their refrigerators. They found some very, very interesting things.
Let me ask you a quick question. Yeah. So people didn't say, when you said, would you like refrigeration, they didn't say, yeah, I'd like to have a big double-door refrigerator with an ice maker.
No, you have to start, you don't start with your product. And that is the key point for the companies that are looking to develop a new business model. You don't start with your existing product or your existing assumptions in other areas. What they found when they looked into the few people in sort of semi-urban and rural environments that had refrigerators, they noticed they weren't very full. A couple of liters of water, they had some milk, they had some vegetables that they needed to keep fresh for a couple of days, and they had some leftovers, which are pretty well cooked in India, but that they needed to stay fresh for a few days, and that was it. They didn't need ice. They didn't need a huge storage capacity. They needed a product that was able to maintain those basic items, and this fit the bill. When you look at the thermoelectric cooling, it uses less voltage. It keeps the temperature about 25 degrees cooler inside, which is just enough to keep that milk fresh, to keep those leftovers fresh. It has a 45-liter capacity, all the way in here on both sides. So there's actually quite a lot of storage room. It's very, very portable, as you can see. It doesn't weigh a lot. These families tended to move quite a bit. It was priced at half the entry level of other refrigerators. This is the electricity source, by the way. Many of these homes have intermittent power. And so the idea that you could run this off of a car battery and another power source, or it would run when the power was out, it was a big plus for these markets. One of the areas in which I've had a lot of respect for Godrej as I've watched them roll this process out is I think they've seen that the refrigerator could be a platform for large markets, but they've been very slow and careful about the way they've rolled it out. The first thing they did was make very careful observations of the consumer. They then figured out a business model which was more than just the product. This is distributed through microfinance organizations, NGOs. It's a community-based selling model where one of the local entrepreneurs that him or herself can get a better life by selling these demonstrates it. It's an aspirational product. It's a happy product. If you look at the just
it looks like a face.
Yeah, it looks like a face and a smiling face.
And that was a conscious
conscious design decision that they are selling the aspiration, the convenience, the show and tell aspect of this product through local different distribution channels. It's not just about the product, it's about the entire business model.
What's the one piece of advice you'd leave us with, or a Western company wanting to enter an emerging market?
I'd sum it up in check your assumptions at the door. Those include the customer, they include the way that you're pricing, they include the way you're distributing. They basically include your entire expertise. The biggest liability that you can have sometimes in going into a developing market is the strengths that made you great in a developed market. And especially from the top, especially for senior leaders, these ventures need to be treated differently. They need to be given time, and they need to start from scratch, where you don't come in with any preconceived notions. And that's the number one thought that I think leaders, senior leaders and others can benefit from looking for success in these markets.
Well, that's a pretty tough discipline, but it sounds like great advice. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming in. That was Matt Eyring. He's president of Innosight, and you can read his article and more at hbr.org.